Welcome to Hawksong Weaving. I'm a disabled weaver who works exclusively with thrifted and secondhand yarn, and today I'll be showing 5 different weaving ideas that use the cheaper acrylic yarn that you can find in almost every single thrift store. I hope you enjoy. Life takes odd turns, but even tattered and worn yarn still has value. Tired joints and health flares don't have to stop the journey. Welcome to Hawksong Weaving, where all our paths are a little bit warped. First things first, I think this yarn gets a bad rap. We've all encountered it at thrift stores. It's the older, yellowing, probably slightly musty smelling yarn that seems to crop up everywhere. The more nicely colored yarn gets snapped up as craft yarn, but nobody wants the dingy white acrylic yarn. And that's a shame, because you can do so much with it from a weaving perspective. First things first, it warps beautifully. It's acrylic, so it's the same tension throughout. It's not too fuzzy, so it won't catch on itself, but at the same time, it's fuzzy enough that it provides a really good grip for a just learning weaver. I genuinely recommend these yarn skeins to beginning weavers. They're solid, as evidenced by the fact that they're in the thrift store, they'll last forever, and they're cheap. So often beginner weavers are terrified of mucking something up. This yarn reduces a lot of that worry. The cheaper acrylic yarns are also really great for learning the adaptive warping method that I use. I have hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which has cascaded into postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. So, for time's sake, know that I have joints that don't work, and if I shift positions too quickly, I get pre-syncope or pre-fainting symptoms. All of this comes with chronic pain, so for a lot of reasons, a traditional warping board doesn't work for me, along with being really expensive and taking up a lot of space in my small studio. So I use an accordion coat rack as my warping board. It's nice and neat, it contracts into a nice smaller space, and I can adjust it as I need to. And I don't have to be up and down and all around and having tachycardia, a racing heart, that stresses out my medical alert cat Penelope Calico. Acrylics, especially the older white acrylics, are also just in general a really good base for projects, which leads us to project number 1, or idea number 1, learning pickup stick patterns. Pickup stick patterns are a great way to add depth and complexity to your weaving, as well as being so much fun to weave once you learn them. But learning them can be tricky, so starting out on cheaper yarn and strongly contrasting colored yarn is the way to go, in my opinion. You can keep track of where you are in the pattern much more easily, even if your concentration is broken or you're coming back to weaving the pattern after taking a break. This particular pickup stick pattern is one of my favorites. It weaves up very quickly and it creates a reversible geometric woven pattern. I have dyslexia and dyscalculia. Again, hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome can make your eyes hypermobile. That's fun. Sarcasm. So pickup patterns are really hard for me to follow, but I've got the muscle memory for this one down. If you want to learn more about pickup stick patterns, check out the other weaving channels on YouTube. I'm not the person to learn that in depth from. A quick wave hello from my partner before explaining Project 2. I love her giggling like a schoolgirl during these waves. It's really sweet. But Project 2, microfiber dust cloths. I don't know about other folks, but I loathe the feeling of most microfiber dusting cloths. The way they're woven with the loops always catch on my calluses. It's a sensory hell for me. But I also hate the waste involved in paper towel or those disposable dusters. So I combined the cheap acrylic yarn with the other yarn that you often find at thrift stores, the really fuzzy stuff that is really popular with crochet artists these days. It doesn't catch on your calluses as much, but does catch the dust. And machine washable, darling, that's a new feature. This project does require some sewing, but it's pretty easy to do. I'd like to thank you for watching. If you'd like to support my work, some free ways to do that are to like, subscribe, or follow, and share. This applies to other small artists as well. It's a great way to let the social media algorithms know that this is content worth watching. If you'd like to support me financially, per viewer request, there's a Buy Me a Coffee linked below, along with the link to the Hawksong Weaving Square site where you can purchase unique woven products. I also now have a Patreon that's linked below as well. There are currently 4 actual tiers and 1 very silly tier. These tiers include early access to videos, a weekly post of the life of the HR and OSHA cats, a Kvetchy diary, being able to vote on projects. This particular video was voted on, so it's why you're getting it now instead of later. A first dibs group for projects featured in videos, and fun snail mails. The actual tiers range from $2, $5, $10, and $15. The 5th tier is absolutely a joke, but just in case, in this economy, I won't say no. For $1,000 a month, you can tell me that I'm not actually disabled, I'm just lazy, and to try whatever yoga, juice cleanse, snake oil nonsense fixed your cousin. I'm absolutely open to other ideas for Patreon, please feel free to comment them. Project or Idea 3, Yarn Rag Rugs. Another commonly found yarn at the thrift store is the Bag of Wonder, or the bag full of tiny yarn balls that are clearly the offcuts or the leftovers from larger projects. These yarn balls are fantastic for this particular type of project. Because the cheaper acrylic is so uniform in tension and it's so strong, it basically is perfect to replace the cotton cord that most rag rugs are made out of. I'm just showing one panel of this particular larger project because I happen to have the red yarn scraps remaining from one of those bags. But these panels can easily be sewn together into a much larger project. Check out my shawl videos for an example of how to whip stitch your panels together. Project or Idea number 4, celebrating the yellowing of the yarn. Let's face it, linen is expensive. Like, genuine flax fiber linen is pricey. Yes, you can find it at thrift stores depending on where you live, but it's still harder to care for in today's fiber world. Now, this project won't have the feel of linen, but it will have some of that soft glow that comes from older linen. Combining different shades and strands of the yellowing, older acrylic yarn can create some really unique fabric that can be used in all sorts of sewing projects. And finally, Project 5, or Idea 5, tassels. I started making tassels because while yes, I have the scrappy scented sachets that use up most of my scraps and keep my weaving zero waste, Some of the yarn was long enough that I wanted to use it for something else, so I looked up how to make tassels and adapted the method that would work best for me and my scrappy yarn situation. Most tassel instructions that I found involved wrapping a lot of yarn around a central square or rectangular object and then cutting it, but I was working with different length scraps. So I tie it around the center point with a matching, there's another hand wave from my partner, a matching or coordinating yarn scrap, and then bend the bundle around that central point, making the top knobby bit and then tying around that with a matching scrap. Then repeat and repeat and repeat until you've used up all of your scraps or made enough to create a tassel garland. I hope I've planted some seeds of ideas for what you can do with the cheap acrylic yarn from the thrift store, as well as plant some appreciation for its versatility. So much of this stuff ends up in the landfills, and it really doesn't need to. For folks in Northampton, or Western Massachusetts in general, let it be known that if you don't know what to do with your old acrylic, I accept yarn destashing donations, and I'm happy to tag you in videos and give a shout out. I'm so glad for the odd turn that your path took that brought you here. Thank you for spending some time with me at Hawksong Weaving, where we're all a bit warped, and I hope that you have a truly excellent week.